When you said that, it made me think of like the self is an entity, right, and that you're an extension of the self, but you're an extension like a tool. And the self is trying to cult this other thing that is kind of you but not, is using you, again, if you're part of it, whatever, as a tool to get these things that it lacks.
To achieve. Because
it's the only way it can is through yourself and you doing it, coming back up.
Kind of gives credence to like the reincarnation cycles and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Your soul is going through these different iterations.
Right, like cultivating a garden, but through different seasons. Right.
So what do you want to talk about, dude?
Yeah, I don't know. You haven't read much of that alchemy book yet, but
yeah, not yet.
Is there anything?
Well, it is talking about it's a lot of Christian stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I describe this? He's talking about the disconnect between kind of the goal of the religion and like the enlightenment, maybe like for you to be able to connect to the God source, it's purely like a thing that happens within, which I think we've talked about before.
Yeah.
But the way that religion is taught and through the church and all this stuff, it's focused on an outward sort of aspect. So like, how do I describe this? It's like, you can't do this, you can't do that. It's all stuff that happens out in the world instead of like focusing on taking that teaching and inwardly not projecting, but like inwardly sort of focusing so that you can have your own divine experience within, which is like a lot of like, I think meditation and like some Eastern religions focus on is that kind of manifesting that feeling.
Yeah.
And experience. So like he's also like heavily like defending himself against like critics of his work. In that, I've read like 20 some pages already, but it's all still intro, which is funny.
Yeah, it is funny.
But I like it because it's more into the nitty gritty instead of just talking about, all right, this is what an archetype is. All right, this is what, some like the other ones.
Him kind of laying out his ideas versus like how they're applied almost, or like, because you're saying nitty gritty, but when I think of nitty gritty, I think of like, because like the archetypal stuff is like kind of a foundation, it seems like, to his thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like that sounds like maybe or am I maybe not? I haven't read it.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. It seems more like, because I've read a little bit of Aeon, a little bit of Psychology of the Unconscious, and it seems, less applied and more general.
Okay.
For like, hey, this is what the archetype of the mother is. This
right.
And it might give you an example of, all right, the primitives have these myths that kind of coincide with it.
Right.
But it's, you can't, most of us who are reading it now, we are immersed in the Christian sort of
mindset, milieu, like.
Yeah. Now that's like modern day.
Right.
So like we can't get there.
It's like our two things. One is should we do an intro quick and then keep talking?
Yeah, hey. Welcome to Polynoia, couch edition of Polynoia. We have many thoughts. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Michael.
Yeah, welcome.
Welcome to the couchie.
We've never done this in person before, but we've been wanting to.
Yeah, because it's a different vibe, but we just live a little ways away from each other, so it's harder to do.
Yeah. So this is about 4 hours into preparation to set up the camera and lights. And
Yeah, we haven't done it, so
yeah.
trial and error a little bit here, just for fun.
And now we're just saying, fuck it.
Yeah.
Full steam ahead.
It'll turn out well or it won't, and we'll just do whatever.
Yeah. So, back to the show.
Yeah, so like, there are two things I was thinking of. One is, I know he doesn't mean it in this way from what I've read, which is just the one book. I've only read
Yeah.
Man and His Symbols. But like, I don't like that he uses the word primitive, because in our but then he like always describes, he's not saying it's a bad thing. He's always talking about how it's just like the mindset is so different and the way they do things is so different. And he often talks about it in a positive way.
Right.
But just that initial, in my head, from our context, saying primitive means like a real derogatory type thing. And I have to be like, it doesn't seem like that's what he means at all.
Through the recent lens of,
right,
a couple hundred years of severe racism.
Yeah. And then the other thing too is like, like you're saying, it's like the programming almost makes it seem too harsh, but like the programming of like Christianity, where like, even if you're not brought up in the church or a church, that you could still, your framework for viewing certain things and your like baseline for like religion and God is through that lens of like Christianity.
Yeah.
So like to get outside of that lens can be really difficult if you can even do it at all fully. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I don't even think it has to stay within, I mean, that's his example is Christianity.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could apply this to all sort of Western religion. Just the way things are being taught. And it's more, like physicalist, maybe like, got to do this right. Got to do not that good, that bad stuff. You got to, and you got to do this prayer and you got to, it's all
like not instructional, but kind of like follow these steps.
Right.
And the steps are what's important.
Yep. And I don't know. It's cool so far.
Yeah.
And I feel like we always kind of do this where it's like, all right, we're scratching the surface of this. Let's talk about it.
Well, yeah.
But, got to start somewhere.
Well, and like, we're not experts and we're never going to be, because to be an expert is to spend so much time with a particular set of ideas or one idea. And also there's a thing I think we've probably talked about where it's not that I don't think experts are good, but I do wonder how much gets lost when you get too familiar with a set of ideas, and do those ideas then become a framework through which you view everything, and you miss because you've built a framework for yourself to view things through.
Yeah.
Like,
there's a weight to that. Like,
right.
You've been with it for a while, and it's like, also a lot of stuff I've realized is kind of just done by like one person or two people, and like the whole literature is kind of based on that, and then that's the jumping off point, and a lot of it maybe hasn't been re-explored again, like start over, because you're dealing with people who have preconceived notions or whatever, and they're translating. Like you have to be an expert in a language to then translate it, and they could get something wrong. Yeah. And then the people after them are only using their translation or whatever going forward. Right.
Well, and even like, to that point too, just using Jung as an example. Like even his ideas, different as they are comparatively to other stuff, it is like everything we do constructed through you as a person. Like all those thoughts are still filtered through your peculiar things and whatever.
Right.
And so, like even those differences of like, if someone else doesn't go back and do, not that you need to, but if they don't go back and kind of do that foundational work, like it's going to look different is what I mean from,
Right. Yeah. So to be continued on, I guess, what more I discover.
Yeah.
But I do, what was I going to say? It kind of goes on the same line of thinking I had where, reading some other snippets of his stuff, it's like a lot of this stuff is meant to be an internal exploration because like the various revelations that happen in the figures in the Bible or whatever, like those are personal experiences.
Yeah, they all are.
That happen, and they're not meant to be kind of taken at face value for everyone. It's more of like an example of what that divine experience can be, and it's going to be different for each person.
Yes. And I have to get out of the habit of saying, we've probably said this before. I've probably said this before. I'm repeating. Who cares?
Yeah.
I should just say it. And then if people recognize it, the large number of viewers, but I do it in like personal stuff too. I'll be like, I'm sure I've said this. And,
yeah.
It's not I don't think it's a historically accurate way to interpret like the New Testament or the teachings of Jesus or whatever. But it's one that I kind of prefer. So that's, again, like I'm just saying I like it, not that it has any whatever.
Feels nice.
But I like the interpretation of a lot of those sayings. Like the one that always sticks out to me is when, whatever 3:18, John, I don't know where it's at.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah. But it's the story where like Jesus is out in the boat with like some of the disciples, and he like walks on the water from the boat, and he says like, you can do this. Like Peter, Paul, whatever, one of the guys is like, and then that guy does, and then like falters and falls in. But Jesus is like, you can do this.
Yeah.
I'm like, that I think to me in my head is like the internalization, not like, oh, I need to get this from a teacher, and through hearing it from the teacher, I can just, by the transitive property, get something. It's that like, no, you have to be like me. The way, like because what is like another thing in the Bible is like the way to the Father is through me or whatever. And I like the interpretation of it's through me, but not like by being like me, by doing this stuff,
right.
By like, again, those internal things, because you can only get it internally.
Right.
It's the only way those like things are going to get switched in your head.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't know, if you're always looking for the divine in the external world, I think that's the wrong approach.
Yeah, I agree.
Like waiting to see something, waiting to, come across something.
Yeah.
Because so much of your day-to-day it's not divine. Other than
mundane.
if you reflect on it and kind of like you get like in my mind, the only like divine experiences are like reflections and sort of emotion.
Yeah.
Feelings.
Yes.
Yeah. Because those are powerful.
Yeah.
And they come in response maybe to seeing, but it's not, I don't know. Because I've said this before, like I don't
know you.
Yeah, I don't know if I believe in a lot of like the fantastical sort of things that can be brought into this world through magical means or whatever, like the
psi stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
Like
I don't know. It feels good. It feels good to think about this stuff. I forgot what I was saying, but
that you don't necessarily believe that there's like a, whether you call it like a psi phenomenon or magic or divine intervention, or like, you mean you're starting to say that like you don't necessarily think that's like a different thing, that's explainable by some other more quote unquote mundane thing just through your bodily functions or
something in the physical universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that distinction between physicality and non-physicality, because I guess, again, in my conception, maybe where I'm more open to things being magic or whatever, I guess maybe that's because, at least right now, I don't, I don't think that physical things are the baseline. I don't, right, at least right now, I kind of don't think that if physicalist is the right word or materialist is a better, I don't know what distinction I
you
mean
can go
technically.
down, a bunch of different ways and really parse this, but
yeah, I guess I tend to right now think that that's not the starting point. And so to me, other things that maybe have less physicality as far as we interpret them or we experience them, that's not as much of a problem to me, because to me it's like, no, there's something else that is more full, and that physicality and stuff is a part of it, but there's other stuff that's not, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical or have to have the same means to react and interact with the world as we're used to. And so for me, I guess that thought opens up the idea that, like, well, like the synchronicity stuff, like I did read that book, like his notes, basically, Young. And the way he's describing it is like, it is a part of reality. It's a real thing. It just so happens to interact in a different way and isn't exactly like causal. It's acausal.
Yeah.
But again, that's from like a baseline thing, whereas just because we experience things causally almost constantly doesn't mean there can't be a thing below that or behind whatever.
It's like a structure.
Yeah.
A material structure.
Right.
Do you view like consciousness as part of the evidence of that, maybe?
Probably, because I know there's so many thoughts about consciousness and how, does it arise from complexity? Does it arise from like the informational complexity? Like I did watch that one talk. I can't remember her name that you sent me.
I forget. She does a lot on assembly theory.
Yeah, I watched the one, and I honestly need to rewatch it because some of it just didn't quite click. But I know you sent the other one that I haven't watched yet, where it's an interview with
something Walker, Sarah Walker.
Yeah, that sounds right.
She has a third name, but I forget.
Yeah, and I guess and maybe it's just the way it feels that I don't like the idea that that's all it is. And maybe even me saying it like that is being reductionist of like, that's all it is. Well,
yeah,
maybe that's a wrong way to think about it. But yeah, I guess like to talk about the consciousness thing, like whether it arises from the complexity in your brain and your brain then, like, I guess I wonder.
Basically an illusion of the physical material.
Like, is the prerequisite, or I guess what's the better way to say it? Is it emergent? Is it an emergent property or a more fundamental property?
Right.
I guess I like the idea of it being a more fundamental thing that then maybe complexity lets you hook into.
Yeah.
Like it's a stream running, or let's say it's like an aquifer or an underground river, and it's always there. There's something there. And then by a certain means, you're able to dig and hit it. You hit the vein.
Harness it. There's a potentiality.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a fun. It's fun because I've thought about this too. Like, if it's fundamental consciousness, like it fits neatly into my idea that there is like that net of consciousness, and then that could be the divine. It's nice to think about that. It could just be like, all right, consciousness here, physical material here,
right,
kind of informs the other, and then as things get more complex, then things like us can tap into that. We can make sense of that or use it, and then reflect upon it. And then, maybe you die, your soul goes into it or whatever.
Yeah. I just thought of this. I'm the first one to think of this. Write it down, Mark, timestamp this.
Mikey.
But I just don't think I've thought about it like this before. But there's an idea in like more magical thinking. It has a couple names, and there's a couple other things that are kind of similar, but like an egregore, which is like kind of like a thought form, which is you through collectively thinking about a thing and giving thought to a thing, it over time grows into its own entity.
Right.
So I wonder if consciousness could also be a similar thing, as in it wasn't fundamental. It's fundamental as in like the baseline building block of existence, which I also would say I don't think that's necessarily the case either. Consciousness, again, depends on how you define it, depends on whatever. But yeah, I wonder if it could be an emergent thing, whereas once creatures, whatever, once information became dense enough or complex enough that a thing that we recognize as consciousness arose, the net, like that started, like by having that information be in that state, it starts to build that net. And now that net is pretty widespread and does live on an underlying level of how we experience existence, but that it necessarily didn't have to always be there. It was emergent and was made. But then now, if it is there, does it stay there regardless of like how many entities are experiencing consciousness and hooking into it? Like, could it have been built by something like that, but now is what's the word? Not a structure, but like a part.
Substrate.
Yeah, now it is there and would remain there, and then you can hook back into it regardless of like a certain amount of, like I said, like entities that currently, like, do you have to upkeep it, or is it just kind of there now? It exists now because it was built, and now it's like a thing.
Yeah, it could be like the fundamental layer is much less complex, and then as things get more complex, like maybe our version of consciousness is an emergent phenomena.
Yeah.
But it's like the atoms that combine into things. It's like all of those things are there, but then they can be built into more complex things.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I wonder, and there's also that, I can't think of the name of it, but those ideas about certain like psychoactive substances and how people tend to report really similar types of experiences on different types of psychoactive substances, like ayahuasca, people often have really similar, even if they're not in the jungle, like doing it there, they'll have the same types of, they'll see snakes and like wildlife that's native to those regions. There's that idea that like, again, it kind of comes back to like, are those spaces, those visions, that information, was it there and you're tapping into it, or is it created through people doing it in the jungle, and that's where it originated, and then through their minds interacting with the substance, it basically gets painted as and filled up, the space gets filled up with that imagery and those themes from the people's experience. And then so now that's like a place or a not real, you know what I mean? Like it's it's a thing somewhere somehow. And then if you then take it now, regardless of where you're at, you might or probably will be in that space. And like I've heard, I can't think, there's a name for this idea, because I've also heard it for like ketamine or something, where people who do ketamine are like, it's like blank. There's like nothing there. It's not filled in with stuff.
The hole.
Yeah, the K-hole. Yeah, K-hole. So like a similar idea, just that specifically for like those types of substances, or like.
I'm wondering if, well, here's my not other thought. I haven't said a thought yet. But I would imagine, apes kind of originated in some area.
Mm-hmm.
So, jungles of Africa or whatever.
Yeah. Ape zone.
So, like, if we all kind of originated from there, the building blocks of our unconscious are there. So is it just you're tapping in? Because I do think my thought of psychedelics is you're kind of blending that line between consciousness and unconsciousness. So you're getting all of these weird archetypal symbols, and you're getting all these weird things that exist in our collective unconscious.
Yeah.
So is all of that stuff kind of laying underneath the surface, and those particular chemicals will draw certain images out.
Oh.
So like if we, apes know what snakes are.
Yeah.
Apes know what these other animals are. And so is it more of that versus, it could be a commingling of experiences between the chemicals and, our repeated history with them over generations.
Like strengthening those, like in your brain, like neural connections by doing things so often, it like strengthens that pathways or whatever.
I guess I'm curious, like what, I don't know off the top of my head, what LSD tends to, because that's a manufactured chemical.
Yeah, well, it
does have roots in
right.
What is it? Ergot.
I think so, something like that.
So I guess that could still be the case, that there's shared ancestry between the different, Well,
and I wonder what the difference is too. I want to get back to one of the things you said, if I remember, but yeah, I wonder if one of the differences is too, because even like DMT, which is I think still the base thing in ayahuasca, right? It's dimethyl.
I believe so, yeah.
Something, one version of it or whatever, but it's with all the other stuff also, not just that alone. Mm-hmm. Because I know there are with other drugs too, like LSD made me think of. Like mescaline is one. Like I read that little book, Doors of Perception or whatever by
Aldous Huxley.
Yeah, and what I'm trying to say is I wonder how much of that is, because clearly it does things to your brain. How much of some of those LSD experiences where it's just the world around you is still there, but it takes on a different quality. And some things are heightened and colors are brightened, and like mushrooms and stuff people talk about. Like maybe that's a piece of it, but maybe that's not the same as like, you're seeing like fucking visions of like a snake, and you're feeling like entities and talking to like two things that commingle but are different.
Yeah.
So maybe LSD, or at least that's my understanding of LSD, is it's more like the quote unquote psychedelic, the colors, the shapes, the patterns, the not necessarily like a space or a vision, or you don't talk to entities.
You're not going somewhere.
Maybe. Yeah, you're still close. You're still here mostly. I think sometimes maybe it's different.
Just a distorted reality.
Yeah.
We're not experts in psychedelics. I've never done one.
I was gonna say, to be upfront, I've never done it, so I don't know.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, I had a dream about snakes last night.
Really?
Yeah. I can't remember the larger part of the dream, but I remember trying to go to the car, and I had to hop over this little like fence to get over there. And then lo and behold, there's dozens of rattlesnakes. And I was trying to hop over them and be careful, and then there was one that I remember like striking at my leg, and I don't know if it hit me or not, but it freaked me out, and I woke up at 3:00 in the morning.
It's always 2 or 3.
It was spooky. I don't know, and I remember like contemplating, like, if I get hit, like what am I gonna do? Like where do I go? Like
what do I do?
Yeah. I was fucked. Shoot, this
frick. I think the other thing I was going to ask So like in the way that you think about things, again now, because it always changes, whatever, you could think
Right.
about things differently anytime. With, and tell me if I'm probably saying this wrong. Like you're more sort of like found structured material, the way that you think about these things. So like when you were mentioning, yeah, hooking into, I guess I'm curious on your thoughts of like how you kind of view the collective unconscious being a thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like where did, and again, I'm not expecting like an answer, but I'm just curious like how maybe you think of it.
I don't know, because I view consciousness as a purely internal, like there's little islands of consciousness in each one of us.
Okay. Like your
And so,
conscious experience,
yeah,
or like your,
right.
okay.
Because we can't read each other's thoughts. We can't,
Well,
it's all, well.
we'll get on. Sorry.
So I think when I think of the collective unconscious, I kind of view it as more of, it's like I kind of view it as more of like a DNA structure. Like it's something that you, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it too much, but I think of it like, yeah, part of your just genetic makeup, like it's remnants in your DNA or something that it's like it's passed along. Which I guess doesn't make sense, but
I mean, no, it kind of does. Because aren't there genetic memories, for lack of a, or maybe that is the term, instinctual stuff that does get passed along
yeah,
to species that even if they don't or haven't encountered something, they will have that sort of, again, memory, instinct, whatever.
yeah, because if it's not something within us that's kind of passed along generation to generation, like it would have to be some swirling pool in a different plane, maybe. I don't know.
Or around us, but just unaccessible through our perceptive organs.
Yeah, and I don't know if I've read,
You know?
Jung explain it.
Mm.
I think he just kind of more points to it. Like this is a thing that seems to be there because of these archetypal images that are shared between cultures, and so I don't know how he explains that.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I mean, that is interesting that, I don't know if I've quite thought of it like that or in that way where you all have, they're not necessarily connected in time, as in not concurrently. Like I have an archetype of the mother, the crone, the father, whatever, and you do too. But it's not that they're right now, we're getting it from the tap. It's that we have the building block of that in both of us. And so that's the way it's shared and not like actively shared. I'm not sure how to say that, but does that make like, because like you're saying like shared in a DNA sense, like we can both tap into the same thing, but our things are separate still.
Yeah.
Even though they are shared and connected in a different way, it's not like right now we're both reaching to something and pulling it.
Yeah, because it is when you do encounter it, it is still a personal representation of it.
True.
Yeah, so I guess I haven't thought about. I always think of this like dark space.
Yeah.
Like somewhere out there.
Right.
There's a source of it. But it doesn't really make sense because I don't know that I think of it like in heaven there's there's the blueprint and now it's imprinted on your mind. I don't know.
Well, I wonder too because I think this is more of like an assembly theory type thing, but obviously correct me if I'm wrong because I don't know. You've looked at that stuff way more. Huh. But about like the blueprint thing, because I think I've heard you talk about it and talk about how in like a broader sense, not like a personal physical entity sense, like creatures, whatever, critters, or you're gonna call them creepy crawlies, that the universe, fucking words suck, and they don't.
Hey, it doesn't matter right now.
Yeah,
we're just talking.
So like,
don't pin anything down, all right?
Fucking pin this on me. But in like a broader sense, I thought I've heard you talk about assembly theory being kind of like in the broad universe existence type thing, that information can get to a certain complexity, but that like it retains sort of information somehow, some way.
Yeah.
So to me, that seems like, well, that extends beyond like my and your personal, in that example we were just talking about of like an archetypal blueprint from genetics. Mm-hmm. That sounds like that is an external thing that's there. So would that not be something similar to how you could construct a place? Again, not a heaven, not a thing. Mm-hmm. But you know what I mean? If that information is there and does get retained in some way outside of entities like us.
Like it's in the hard drive somewhere.
Yeah, the universal hard drive.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. But then how do you connect with it?
Right.
Yeah.
Or is it just infused in everything? Because like, I kind of feel like, because we're so locked into, like we were talking about, being locked into certain lenses or frameworks through a religion like Christianity or whatever, and you're thinking, I do think we are so, maybe not totally, but maybe, of our physicality, of the way that we view things, where we, because we're spatial entities and exist in a definite 3D for whatever space, that we just intuitively or intrinsically think of things as such. So we can't think of it really as being like, oh, consciousness, for that example, or the information or these like structures are just everywhere all the time, constantly. It's just not something we physically see or feel or touch.
Right.
But the underlying constituent part is always there. But in our heads, when we think about stuff like that, we want to place it.
Yeah.
Because that's how we view and interact with the world in our general lives, is that, well, things have a place and things have a form and things have this, and that's how I understand it. So could it also just be like, that's just a limitation of our brains and the way we're trying to think, is that we're just putting that onto something and it might not necessarily be there?
Yeah, I think it has to be the case that we are just not able to conceive of it otherwise, because I mean we do have 1 foot in the immaterial plane and 1 foot in the material plane, just, you know, the way our consciousness
seems that way, right?
And our consciousness doesn't obey time and space really.
Apparently, like that synchronicity book, Jung was talking a lot about like ESP experiments that were done, and that's why he's calling it like an acausal connective principle, or whatever the title of the book is. Mm-hmm. That, yeah, seemingly there are things that don't necessarily work the way that we, like, I hit this lamp over and it falls and the glass breaks. But then there's stuff like the shared experiences or ESP things where people seemingly can pull information from somewhere else, not directly in time or slightly ahead of time or in a different place that they're not in, or like weird stuff that seems to happen, but not very often, or not very strongly often, or, you know, because
it's weird.
Well, I often wonder too about, because on the one hand, there are things where people will make predictions, or they'll do certain things, or where they'll be like close but a little off.
Yeah.
And then people are like, I see it both ways, where then people are like, oh, but that is a thing because it was so close. And you're like, well, are you stretching it? Mm-hmm. But on the reverse side, it's like, well, does it have to be exact? Or is it being so close kind of crazy in and of itself? And again, maybe it's like a fidelity issue, like where you don't have,
Yeah.
like you're learning something in math class and you remember most of it.
Yeah.
Would you say that's completely wrong? No.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how, and I'm sure it depends on how you would try to apply it to different things, but
Yeah.
like, even not a dumb example, it's fun. And again, pattern recognition in your brain and how much of that plays into it, or how much of that is not just a mechanical way your brain works, but also a different part of something. But I was listening to one of those podcasts, those higher side chats, the X-Files one, and there was a part where he was like talking about the number 49. And then he was talking, and a little while later, I looked at my dash as I was driving, and it was like both my, what is it, like your current trip and my odometer, it was like both ended in 449. I was like, that's kind of weird.
Kind of weird.
Right? Like,
yeah.
Again, I don't know if
because, well, maybe you forgot, but you looked at it at some point, and then you have this background running clock in your head, and it just like,
but
you
that
looked
also
when it was
that they
appropriate.
were both 449 is a little fun.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think, when I think about that stuff, I tend to try to not, this is the hard part too. I think we were talking about synchronicity stuff, like meaning.
Yeah.
I don't think there's like, oh, because I was listening to that and they were talking about this and I saw that, then therefore I'm drawing this line back to this thing that like this is the meaning of it.
Yeah.
I think of it more of like a confluence or like the universe like rhyming. It like showing this stuff sometimes if you're like aware of it. Like it might not necessarily mean anything in the way that we think of meaning. Like when people talk about God or whatever, and they're like, well, it has to have a deeper meaning. It has to, because I think some of that's just again, maybe a framework we have of like us wanting things to have a cause and effect. And so it has to be this and then that and then that, where it's like, maybe it's just things kind of line up sometimes. And when you notice it, it's,
I mean, you're running the simulation millions of times. You're going to have some things line up.
Right. And I guess like even when I say that, it's like, well, then what does it mean to have these things? And I'm like, I don't know if it means anything other than that the universe might work in a way that is more mysterious to us, that things can line up and things can do stuff. And maybe sometimes if you follow that thread, it'll take you somewhere, or like the intuition stuff, or like,
you should have stopped the car right there.
Right. There's something that I should have done.
There was 49 little grasshoppers you didn't see.
Or like the stuff with like astrology where it's like these things lining up. Like maybe there are alignments of things or synchronicities that then you can read something out of, as in like, oh, I should do this then. Or if this happens, then I would have a better, it's kind of like magic in the fact, or in the idea that like, I'm trying to think of how I've had someone, there's a guy I like on YouTube called Foolish Fish. And I think the way I've heard him describe magic as, he's like, you're not going to do something impossible.
Yeah. What
you're doing is increasing the likelihood of an event to happen that is within the possibility of happening. You're not, I'm not going to make water appear, a rain cloud above my head appear. That's not going to happen.
Right.
But by doing certain things or aligning certain things or putting intention and thinking about doing certain things, you can basically up the chances.
You can position yourself
of something happening that you would want to happen.
Right.
And like that makes a lot more sense to me. Like, yeah, it's not like a magic trick. It's not whatever.
You're getting yourself out, like you're getting your mind out of the way.
Yeah.
To allow things to happen.
Well, and like maybe. I've also heard it described too, kind of like the classic, like the monkey's paw, where it's like the way you ask for something, it's in like genies and monkey paw stuff, you get a wish, and if you're not careful of how how specific you're being or what you're wishing for, you might get it in a way you don't want, or you might get it through a circumstance you don't like, or whatever. And I think, yeah, like I've heard that for like people doing magic, where when you're trying to do magic to like get something or like physical or an event or whatever, it's like, yeah, if you're real specific about it, either real specific or not specific enough, it might not work out the way you want. Right. And like, I think that's interesting too. Which is part of the reason I haven't really done or tried to do much magic, because I don't want stuff like that.
Yeah. Unintended consequences.
Or that, or even like, because people do like money magic or to find love or to do whatever. And not that I think that's bad. I don't think it's a bad thing to want to increase your position to a better place in the world through whatever, well, obviously it's not through whatever means. You can't just fucking, but I mean, like, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but in my head, like the way we talk, I think what's more interesting would be like this is what I struggle with. Like, not even to get information or to gain knowledge through conversation with like an entity or an angel or a spirit or whatever, but maybe just that experiential quality of something being different or outside our waking. I think that's more of what I would want. I don't want to find like $20 on the ground.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I don't, that's not going to increase my position so much. Whereas some people, it really would.
Yeah.
But I'm, lucky that I'm in the position where that's not the case. But yeah, like I struggle with like, what would I want? And then I don't like, because I also hear like, you can't, like, I don't know. It's like that weird thing of like, even in like other spiritual modalities of like Eastern stuff, it's like, you shouldn't want. Like in Buddhism and certain things, it's like wanting isn't necessarily a good. You do need certain things, and you
is recognition of where you lack.
Maybe
is that it could be the same thing as want, maybe, but
that's I think I like the way you phrased that better.
It's less
of a desire and more of like a filling up of a void or an empty.
But then I guess if you explore it enough, it maybe has roots in still wanting or desiring.
And maybe that's just
like, do you deserve to fill that hole?
Well, and that reminds me too of like Jung, and I guess more specifically his people, Jungians, but them talking about like that one chapter in Man and His Symbols was really cool. It was, the whole chapter was like a case of a guy, and it just went through like the person doing it and going through it. But them talking about like the way those certain things get expressed, negative expressions of things are often things people would be like lacking. Like someone who had lacked experience in like romance, or lacked experience from being independent, or lacking whatever it
child, play or whatever, like experiences
where those would then express themselves too. And then so even in that sort of regard, that made me think of like, maybe it's not a want or desire, or maybe it is, but like to the self-actualization, the individuation is what you want to do, is like balancing that stuff back up. So yeah, I wonder if maybe there's just a hard distinction to make between like being greedy, wanting, desiring, and wanting to, again, want to be more actualized, whatever the word.
Have you ever wondered what, so like when I'm reading about individuation and the balancing and the compensation or whatever for the things that aren't, fully realized, or whatever, like, it makes me think that the self is separate from like your ego in some way. Like it's
Yeah.
something that needs to be fulfilled for something else, and not necessarily like the way you are, the way we're communicating with our ego and all this stuff and our surface level wants and desires. There's this undercurrent of your unconscious that's trying to communicate things that you're lacking, like we just said, or, you know, maybe things you shouldn't be doing. And
the shadow coming out because of that.
Like that feels separate, almost completely separate. And you're trying to be this more balanced version of yourself for something else.
That's a really interesting.
That's the way it feels.
That's crazy. I say that not like you're fucking nuts. I mean, I've never thought that, but that's an interesting idea. So do you mean that like I don't even want to say this because I don't want to like put this thought and make it anyway. I'll just say it. Like when you said that, it made me think of like the self is an entity. Right. And that you're an extension of the self, but you're an extension like a tool. And the self is trying to this other thing that is kind of you but not, is using you, again, if you're part of it, whatever, as a tool to get these things that it lacks.
To achieve.
Because it's the only way it can is through yourself and you doing it, coming back up.
Kind of gives credence to like the reincarnation cycles and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Your soul is going through these different iterations.
Right. Like cultivating a garden, but through different seasons and through, yeah.
Yeah. Like the shadowy, unconscious self maybe brings forth emotion in response to things that you're doing or you're being a part of, things that happen to you, because it's ruining its chance of breaking the cycle or whatever.
Yeah. That's really interesting. It also makes me think of that idea of just like extending that, which is the idea that like you like your divinity and or like how have I heard it phrased, like you're the universe experiencing itself. Mm-hmm. So in that sense too, like is your self, soul, whatever, is that even yours, or is it one? Is there one? And like everyone, it is doing all of that for its own. Again, that makes it sound greedy. Maybe it's not a greed or a thing. It's just how it works.
Yeah.
And then everyone is the extension of it. And it's all seems different because it is separate, because it is doing it and using it as a tool. Again, the way I'm saying it makes it
flesh is
negative.
A prison, bud.
See, and that's the thing. It's like, I'm sure there's a way in which it doesn't have to be like a negative connotation for that. Because also when you first said, I'm like, that's a perfect conspiratorial mindset. If you said that to someone, like, yeah, actually, you're a fucking puppet. Not for the government, not for the cabal, but like by a fucking entity. And you are not even, there's no freedom. Yeah, there's just, yeah. And I guess my thought, me thinking back and forth between, you know, the angel and the devil, the two wolves.
Both gay.
Which is that like I wonder if it would be more so like how, like I think about this too, is like how much, sorry, I'm trying to collect my brain into a stream of thought of how much you should put volition, if that's the right word, or intention onto a thing. Like the same way we don't put negative intention onto like animals or to whatever, like plants. We don't say the plant is doing this because it has ill intent toward something else. Mm-hmm. It's just the way that it functions.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. If that could be applied to something like that also, or I've also heard that for like, again, like more like spiritual things like entities or whatever, that like like a demon, for example, a demon, again, huge square quotes, scare. They're kind of square sometimes. Huge scare quotes on what that even could mean, depending on what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But like, let's say like a more negatively perceived entity that seems to not want the best for you, but that's the same for angels. Apparently angels don't fucking like us. They don't want to talk to us. We smell bad. They don't really like us. They don't really want to help us. Like, is that a conscious, in the same way that we think of consciousness type of a thing, like, fuck them? Or is it just like, you have these entities and that's just kind of how they are. They just kind of work that way. To us, it's a negative thing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, it's not really negative because it's actively trying to do that against a different idea it could do. It's just kind of how it is.
Yeah. Okay. So let me workshop something here.
Yeah.
You go to the jungle.
Yep.
It's a giant death machine, right? So you got the leopard or whatever. It goes after the monkey. It bites the monkey. The monkey screams. Tiger's getting some meat, whatever. And like you said, we don't really. I mean, we can apply some, morality to it.
We can,
especially if they don't do a quick death or whatever. But largely, you can probably say that that's just a natural thing that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And in the whole, sphere of the globe, how things work is kind of like that, life and death, and there's a balance, and things just happen.
Yeah.
And I feel like because I feel like I've read this with Jung and other stuff, but we were following that path pretty well as primitives and as like lower apes, and then there's a separation with the ego at some point, and it becomes more and then unbalanced. The ego takes all of the resources for itself and starts to manipulate things out of the natural order. And like, I don't know, is the individuation like the perfect being, whatever, that we can become? Is that more in line with nature? Is that the purpose? Or is it all still a natural process that we're in now? And I don't know. I was trying to work towards something there, but I'm kind of more just describing my thoughts, I guess.
I think I know
as I'm having them.
No, I think I know what you're meaning. Maybe. Yeah, because it's like the idea too, where a lot of, again, like from our conception, like Christianity and some things in the Bible are like, gives humans more ownership of the natural world. Like, you are allotted this, you are given this, it's yours type of a thing, which would be the ego, the separation from the natural order, where you're now what's the word you used? But you're now doing something to it instead of being more a part of it. You're still part of it.
Yeah.
But you're more controlling of it, and you're more in a way that other entities don't seem to do. And whether that is that like a runaway oops, maybe the oops all ego, oops too much, or like
too clever,
or like the other thing like you said, or is that still the progression, and the progression is happening? Because there's that thing too of like within Christianity of like a divine right, like because we're different, we're separate.
Yeah.
Which I do think is like really negative in a lot of ways, because then you do feel like, well, who cares? Like, because I have the ability to do these things, I can and I should. And it's like, but not to say like you should or whatever, but yeah, maybe it is like a progressive thing where that is a part of some larger progression towards who knows what, if there is an end point. Probably not.
Right.
It's just the expression continuing in that direction or something. Yeah, but whether the individual is, yeah, sorry, you go.
Well, I was just thinking like what's the play with how do we want to describe, like, now that we have more of a clever mind, let's say,
Yeah.
loosely, where we can start to reflect and apply thoughts on certain things in certain ways. Like now we have a morality. Now we have a lens to view the actions of the world that were kind of just always just happening.
Yeah.
Now we can apply a value to what is happening, and you develop a moral sense, a moral duty of what is right, what is wrong, and ways to be. And that's just kind of my thought, I guess. I don't know where I'm going to go with that, but what was I going to say?
While you're thinking of it, it makes me think of like the idea that I have and others obviously have. Again, no one else, just me, bud. But of the, because I do view morality as a construct. It's not, I don't think it's something again, fundamental, because how could it be?
Right.
I think it is something that is constructed from us, our perspective. And that's not to say that it's a bad thing, because again, once you have that, yeah, you probably should act in a certain way. Once you understand you shouldn't, once you have that thought of killing is pretty bad, even killing animals is not good.
Right.
You shouldn't make things suffer. Once you have that thought, I think, yeah, you should probably try to adhere to that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas some people are like, oh, so if you don't think morality is fundamental, then you can just do whatever. It's like, that misses the whole fucking point of morality.
Right.
And I hate when I've heard people say that, like, again, usually religious people, like, well, it has to come from like some divine source. Otherwise, why even do it? And I'm like, that misses the point entirely, I think. And there's a weird way to try to think that you're correct about it. Like,
Yeah.
no, you should, yeah.
Okay. So I'll go off of that. Like, so like, okay, we got to eat, right?
Yeah.
So
you need fuel.
We know that, if you're going to hunt a deer or whatever,
yeah,
you do a clean kill, minimize the suffering. There's an argument to say that even killing is wrong in some way.
Right.
So then what do you do? So then you go vegan. Well,
And
we
then
know that there's research that shows like plants
Yep.
basically suffer too.
Yep.
And so like, then what do you do? Do you just die? Do you just like, so, going back to like the harmony of the earth just doing what it is doing, and all the things existing and killing and eating and whatever,
right.
Death, decay, like all of that exists, and it kind of has to exist for life to continue. And it's probably a good thing that life exists.
You can imagine. So,
you know, and I wouldn't
I guess you can imagine how it could be just bad as a whole, but.
Right. And that'd be a pretty, I would say, evil thought. Like, destroy everything, now that we have this moral sense, however illusory it might be.
Right.
But, like, so then if you don't go the everything has to go route, everything has to stay then. And so you do have to find your balance in the right amount of death, the right amount of taking,
least amount harm done, reduction maybe, like. And
I don't know, like, what do you do with that?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, what do you do with that? And yeah, in that thinking too, it's like, yes, there is give and take in the life, in the existence that we're in. Things don't come from nothing, mostly, apparently. Again, maybe some of the weird stuff, the acausal stuff, you could say doesn't follow causality in the way that we think of it, and maybe that's true. But yeah, for the most part, there's only so much energy. Energy comes from other things. It's all transferring around constantly. It's not something that's just given. Because like even the sun and stuff, it's burning fuel. It has all this stuff. It's giving. And then you're taking, and etc. And it'll burn out eventually. But yeah, with like the morality type thing, Talking about food in particular, because we have to eat and we need fuel. Yeah, like, is it more moral now to, is it a progression, like you were saying, where, yeah, I think we'd all agree we should not have factory farming.
Right.
I think we can all, most people, hope, and I know not everyone, and maybe not even most, but would agree that is a bad thing. We probably should not try to do that. We shouldn't be doing it. We shouldn't eat that way. So then you go to more plant-based diet, or like you use products from animals that aren't harmful necessarily to like eggs and stuff. Like you can get eggs, they're going to lay eggs, chickens are going to lay eggs anyway.
Right.
You can do things in ways, you can get milk, you can get products, and when animals reach the end of their life, you could say it's not so bad then to then use that, whatever. There are a bunch of arguments, whatever. But like I'm trying to get to a point that you were already saying, but just to reiterate it, that so then, but we know there's research about plants and how they do have, again, feeling in a real broad sense, not the same way we experience it, but that clearly there's like responses that happen when you cut and do stuff that look like it is like a trauma type thing. So then you're maybe getting away from the more human, more relatable animal type thing, getting to plants, but you're never going to get to a point where you get none.
Right.
And so, yeah, so is it the case that, like you're saying, yeah, you wouldn't, once there is life, it seems like you shouldn't just say, get rid of it because that's bad. It's like, well, no, because now there's a different set of rules almost. And so now you should try to proliferate that. And even with like, if it is just harm reduction, then at least from what we know now about how things quote unquote feel, maybe plants are the better option. You're not getting away from it.
Right.
You're still doing it, but maybe it's better. And then you could say, what about like lab grown stuff? And it's like, well, if these are organic or inorganic components that we're then doing,
slop.
But is that better? And then you could still make the argument, well, where are you getting that organic and inorganic material? Because you have to get them from somewhere. And then you have to use energy to make this, and you're in a lab, and what made the glass, what made the whatever, what made... Like, it is something I don't think you can ever...
How much waste is going in the environment, like,
right.
You know.
Compared to, like, yes, you've done less harm to living entities, which is good. But if this is the case, I don't know that it is, but then if you're doing, what if it does cause, to make the lab grown meat, cause actually more pollution, well, then that's still bad.
Yeah, even if
I'm not saying that's the case, but...
Even if all humans ethically farmed, hunted, whatever...
Which we can't do.
Yeah.
There's not enough room and resource to...
Yeah, you could do it within countries, probably... of certain size. You could do it for certain populations, but not everyone.
Yeah.
But even if, hypothetically, you could eliminate most harm caused by humans to acquire food, the entire globe is still this murder machine. There's still so much harm being done from other animals to other animals and to plants. So... I guess all you can do is limit as much as you can.
It comes back to like how we kind of started talking about, in the sense of religion and your experiences. It's not the external things that matter. It's your internal experience.
Right.
So in the same way, maybe what's the most important thing is that once you're, again, not because there's some divine will or rule book or whatever, but that the morality that comes from whatever sort of informationally dense creatures we've become with understanding of things, that it is the better choice at that point then to internally for you do the least amount of harm that you possibly can within reason, without, like, maybe that is it comes back to the internal thing. Maybe it is like that's what matters then, because like you said, you can't, nature's going to do whatever. You can't stop the murder machine. It's just the way it is.
You limit the suffering you cause to limit the suffering you experience.
Yeah.
You know, for someone who can sense that.
Right.
Because, you know, there's psychopaths and stuff.
Oh,
but
yeah, true. There's exceptions, and yeah.
Yeah. It also feels weird to just have a blanket statement that it's all an internal thing and everyone should individuate, because
there is a collective.
There are people that cannot experience moral growth or the individuation process, I would assume, because they're limited in like their psychology,
or like physically limit, like something literally in the construction
a head
of your
injury,
brain. Yeah,
you know?
there's something that prevents that just because.
And like, what do you do with that soul? You know, like it almost feels like there's no soul, or you get to try again.
I was going to say the null soul was evil.
Right.
I feel like that has to be an evil take.
No, I mean, like, in like our understanding of what is, like, is there a soul or is there not a soul? Like how we think about humans and their soul and, like, you know, whatever, meaning and not meaning. So like, if there is a soul, that really sucks. You know, that person is so disadvantaged and can't achieve, maybe.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah. Or if there's only one chance, only one soul you're ever going to get.
Right.
So is there some sort of cycle that person can then maybe try again? Or
like you're saying too, with like the self, as in that same idea. Or is it just a similar thing, like, you got a bad tool that time.
Yeah.
Your extension, your whatever, in this round for you trying this thing, just stuff happens. That's just what it is. And then so in the next one, to get your growth, the self in that example, you'd get a new.
Yeah. What if you had like a really psychopathic mind and you did cause lots of suffering for your go around?
Mm-hmm.
And the next time you're born or whatever, you have this sort of innate sense of like, I really hate watching people suffer or things suffer, and you don't know why.
Yeah, either because you caused it or experienced it in another.
Yeah. And maybe it's not like the next time.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Somewhere down the road. Because that too, like with reincarnation, the way we tend to think of it too, I wonder how much is just purely, again, based on our framework of being people. And then the way that we evaluate things is like a scale or again, trying to get to some end. Mm-hmm. There's always like a beginning and an end because causally how we think. Where like with the reincarnation soul stuff is like, is it really like a fucking, like a checkbook balancing? Right. Is it really like 40 points down plus 20 this time, 40, you know, and you're trying to get to X?
Yeah.
Or is that just something we kind of, it makes sense to us, so that's how we talk about it?
I feel pretty confidently saying, at the very least, there is some literal reincarnation happening, because atoms are atoms. So like eventually in the earth, they get repurposed into something else. So at some level you are, you know, this skin that I had will be repurposed into something else eventually. But are you going to get, you know, a soul or a level of consciousness ever again as whatever the self was this time?
Right.
Is there a similar experience going to be had again?
Right.
I want to say yeah, because it feels nice to say yeah.
It feels nice to say yeah. But I think it's good to even pat ourselves on the back. But I think it's good to even recognize when you're saying stuff and thinking things like, oh, do I just think this because I like the way it sounds?
Yeah.
And not saying that that's necessarily even bad.
Yeah.
You can like stuff because of the way it sounds, and that can guide your thing. I don't think that's wrong. Because again, when we're talking about stuff like this, we don't know. No one's ever known. The people say they have, and maybe some people do get some sort of insight into what's beyond or beneath or past whatever. But it's not something empirically we can show or prove in the same way that we do with other aspects of our physical existence. It's just probably not how that works. Again, how I like think of it, like it just maybe those tools like science and things, very useful, very helpful for a lot of stuff. But maybe that methodology just can't work on everything.
Right. Yeah, because we're not even close to being able to prove really that the consciousness is from the brain.
Right.
Like there's aspects of it maybe that, but we can't prove how.
Right.
Exactly. There's probably just limits.
There might be just hard limits, so we're just not going to get past with, again, certain like methodologies like science. Again, so for how very helpful it is, not ever knocking that it does a lot of good.
It is so hard for me to believe that it's all just absurdity. There is just no meaning at all. It's weird to wrestle with that.
It is. And again, meaning, like, what do you mean by meaning? Not asking you specifically now, but just like, how do you even try to define that? It can
be separate from, it could be it doesn't have to be the human meaning.
Right.
But, the purpose.
Mm-hmm. And even that's hard for me to, like, grok, which is like, because in my head, when I think of purpose, I think of like an end, so a goal. But is there? Or is it just constantly becoming? It's just constantly happening, doing. And that's it. And there's not an end point. You're not reaching there's not a roadmap or a blueprint. You're making Legos and it's step 1 to 26. Yeah. And 26 is the end and then you're done.
Right. Yeah, because like even just the stuff that's out in the universe, all of the stuff. Why is there stuff?
Why is there nothing rather than, or something rather than nothing?
Right,
yeah.
That question. It just doesn't make any sense.
It's too tricky, my brain. It hurts.
But I do know it's kind of cool.
It's cool, and it's fun to talk about.
Yeah.
And with that, maybe we call it.
Yeah, that's probably good.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for hanging out, a little couchie.
Couch.
We're calling these little couchies. We'll workshop a name.
And in another year, we'll do it again.
I mean, it should be less, but again, just life.
Distance. The travel. Hey, this is fun.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Felt more connected, you and I.
It is. It's something about being in the same room as someone,
Yeah, maybe we'll kiss off air.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a little smooching off air, off the couch, in the closet. 7 minutes in heaven, maybe?
Yeah, there's a closet over there.
Hey, off
Patreon for the
closet.
kiss.
Ooh, kiss closet cam. Camera, kiss, closet cam.
Oh, 7 minutes of kiss. All right, well, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for glistening.
Have a good evening. It's cookie time.
It's cookie time.